Hi everyone!
Hi guys!
It's the YY Westie from my home in Vienna, and tonight I have with me Wayne and Aggi Swing. Wayne and Aggi from Poland and UK, but from Poland.
Thank you for that.
So Wayne and Aggi are teachers and dancers from currently Poland. They have two events in Poland. Warsaw Halloween Swing in November and Baltic Swing in June. And today my guest is Ibihokai Regera. Do I pronounce it correctly? Almost.
Yes, I think with a little bit of an accent, but
right,
yes.
Ibi is a famous event director and West Coast Swing teacher in Sweden and all over Europe. And today my guest is Z from Singapore. Z is a well-known character in the world of West Coast Swing. He owns the Asia Open event in Singapore. And he's also a dance teacher. He has his own studio in Singapore.
So when it started, it was like middle of March. This is where it hit our friends, West Spring thing and King Swing, and we're like,
Laszlo, we love you. Martin and Kasia, we love you.
Wayne, I'm talking.
I'm sorry. It's like all the time.
So basically, we were like feeling horrible for them. Like we were just on the phone with them, on the messenger, like, what you guys gonna do? How can we help? You know, if you need some help with answering emails, whatever, because I think they were really scared to make a decision on the fly. And we couldn't imagine this for ourselves as well. And so this is when we were like, okay, this is happening, it's horror, just we go through it, but Baltic is in 3 months. You know, we're super optimistic about everything in life. So we like, it's gonna be okay, we're gonna be good. We just watch the news, we see what's happening, and there are more and more of our friends who are canceling the events. And we're like, okay, it's getting closer, it's getting closer. Then we have this hotel issues and, you know, cancellation policy and everything. And we're like, everything is getting on the stake. We have to make a decision early enough to not lose everything. So the first thought when we had like, maybe we will have to cancel Baltic, that was the worst part. You know, when you like, for the first time realize, I think we cannot do it. I think it's not gonna be possible. And you have all this mixed feeling of denial that, no, it can't happen. We have to do everything to make it happen. It will be just the worst for us. And then day by day and weeks after weeks, you just kind of start accepting that and thinking, okay, it's probably gonna happen. It's enough of just being afraid. You just have to deal with that. So what we're gonna do, how we make our decisions, how we tell people about it, what we're gonna do, what we can offer, like just so many things.
So I think for us, for me, Asia Open was meant to be in April. And if you remember the timeline, actually, when we were leading up to Asia Open, it wasn't that bad yet. It was only looking bad in China. But I think in March, things kept getting worse. And then countries started to say, okay, you know, we're going to ban travel from certain places. And we decided to pull the plug on the event, I think only about a month before. And it was actually really stressful leading up to it because first we'd had participants who were like, oh crap, now you can't travel to Singapore anymore. So, okay, you know, we would offer to refund your tickets. And then after that, it just kept getting worse, you know, and then we'd have more countries that would be like, we can't travel anymore. And I was like, okay, great. And then we'd have people who were pulling out because of the fact that they didn't feel safe traveling. But I mean, I think for us, you know, when it started blowing up in the US and Europe and we were like, okay, man, we have no participants, we have no pros. You know, I guess we're gonna have to cancel.
Then past a certain date, we realized this is not gonna happen, and then it was just a matter of how to go about it, right? But for us as event directors, I mean, we're really looking forward to this year's event. We had a great lineup. You know, we had, you know, registrations coming in and a nice momentum to be able to sell out again. I think this would have been probably the 5th or 6th year of a sold out event. So we were super excited, like, you know, for the whole weekend. And at the time when we needed to make the decision, it was obvious. So you know, I don't think that we kind of really realized the impact and how it was going to affect us emotionally in a way. But the weekend that the event was supposed to happen, when we were like, oh shit, wait, it's not actually happening. And you know, it becomes a realization of, wow, this weekend we were supposed to be at Scandic. We were supposed to prepping for the pre-party. We were supposed to be, you know, rigging up the light and the sound system and the whole bit. We were supposed to, like, you know, get together with everybody and the whole, you know, the jitters, the bugs that kind of hit you when you're supposed to, like, be at a good event or organize a good event is, oh.
People were very sad, but they understood. And I think one thing that I'm super grateful for is that we offered a refund to all our participants. You know, we said that basically for us, we said we will automatically postpone your pass to next year. But if anybody really wants a refund, just email us and we'll refund you. And actually, almost nobody asked us for a refund, and everybody just said we're happy to postpone to next year. So I'm actually super grateful for that. And if anybody who happens to watch this video who happens to be holding a pass for next year, then thank you so much. I do a lot of social dances, so I do salsa, bachata, like I'm involved in street Latin. I've dabbled a bit in zouk. And I really truly believe that the West Coast Swing global community is actually the most supportive one I've seen, like, in the world.
Yeah, people are amazing. You know, it's just like you feel very scared and bad about that, but then you get so much love that you stop caring about it. You're like, okay, that's just money. It comes and go. That's life. You know, you have better and worse, but you worry about it when you at the beginning you feel lonely, but then you get ding, all these messages, and then you read the people just like, even if they sending you some love, that's just amazing. You know, in whole Europe, just the community is the best. Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, you go, as I said about treating it as a business, you know, you go into a business and, you know, you take on the financial, you know there may be some financial loss or whatever, you know, when you do this. But we're going to be very close to kind of not losing because of the support of the community, you know. And, you know,
people like you.
Yeah, exactly. People like you, for instance. Yeah, thank you very much. You know,
don't always have a lot, but they still share and help. Not only, like, you know, on the West Coast Swing event, we share a dance, we share the energy, and now people just share whatever they have with us to help us. And we are hoping in the future we can share with everything we can to others. So we just really feel like, you know, the COVID-19 horrible thing in general, but in some way amazing, showing how much love and support is here in this world.
It's a really tough question.
I know.
I think it depends on two things. I think it depends on where they come from and depends on where the event is. Like, I mean, this epidemic or this pandemic has hit different countries and different regions really badly. So, like, although Singapore has been locked down, like I mentioned before this, I don't know anybody who knows anyone here who has had coronavirus. So the number of local community cases is very low. So because of that, getting the virus doesn't seem to feel very real to us, right? If, let's say, you come from a country or a region that isn't really badly hit, you might feel pretty safe traveling to another country that likewise has not been really badly hit. But I think if you come from a country that has been really badly affected, you might feel much more reserved about traveling. And I think people will also feel a lot more reserved about traveling to countries that have been severely affected by the virus. And I guess the other thing is just age group. I do feel the age group matters. I think from a lot of the statistics that shows younger people, middle-aged people don't seem to have that much to worry about in terms of like the virus, whereas like older people are much more significantly at risk. So I do think this is not a question that people are going to have the same answer to. I think we're going to see many differing answers for a while about whether they feel safe to travel. I don't think it's going to kind of get back to normal for at least a year. Looking at the severity in a lot of countries, I mean, I think there's some people that will have a permanent shift of behavior. As I mentioned, there will be, I think, a lot of pressure on doing things like that are seen as socially responsible. So, like, I do think things like, very, very unfortunately, I do think things like social dancing will be be under a lot of pressure in a lot of countries, because I think something like social dancing is going to be seen as socially irresponsible for a while. So I think a lot of other things might go back to normal a little bit sooner, but I think that social dancing will not go back to normal anytime soon.
So until we have vaccine or some sort of immunity or some sort of medicine that we know 100% can battle this thing, I don't think I don't think we're going to recover that soon. Let's put it that way.
And you think that even if events will be allowed and flights will be available again, people will not attend events?
Not everybody. I'm pretty sure that I think it's going to be like starting off slow. It's almost like rebuilding the community. Now, I'm not going to say from scratch, but like that a lot of events that kind of, stopped happening are going to start again little by little. And even so, I think the numbers are going to be down significantly when we start. And then hopefully slowly by slowly we can pick up and come back to the numbers that we had prior to the whole Corona chaos.
So you think, to be realistic, by the beginning of next year?
Yeah, and I'm not sure that that's even realistic, to be honest. I'm thinking that's optimistic. Realistic, I'm gonna say, within a year and forward. So right now we're in May. So with a little bit of luck, Nordic can happen next year.
It depends how you feel about it right now too. Like I organized like low event in summer for like my salsa ladies, and some of them like, yeah, I'm definitely coming, and some of them, hey, they didn't announce the pandemic is over, I'm not going anywhere, I'm staying at home. So I think the biggest thing and the biggest challenge will be to gain trust that is okay, but we cannot assure anyone. This can be from government, from finding something which can help. I understand that people will be afraid to travel for some time, because if, God forbid, you'll catch that, you prefer to be in your own house, right? And it has to be some time before people get some kind of trust in the governments that it's okay. But also, I think a lot, it depends on your own personality. How serious you feel like now, this is how it's going to carry on with you, and being close to people, touching people, getting sweaty together.
Yeah, and also I think a lot of it relies on the shoulders on the promoters as well. They have to be kind of aware and responsible, and try their best. You can't lead everyone around by a lead and tell them what to do like a kid, but you can put the things there that make people feel safe. For instance, antiseptics, just encouraging people, and maybe telling the pros and stuff, anyone's teaching, just to wash hands and stay clean. If you're sick, even if it's not COVID, or if you just got flu or a cold, for me, you shouldn't be either attending the dance event, or you should be staying in your room until you feel better. And one place that we taught at this year, we taught there for the last 4 years, was the Eurodance Festival in Germany. Really, really big event.
Beginning of March.
Yeah, and that was just when COVID was like getting around and getting kind of popular, I suppose, if you want to call it that way. But they made everyone aware. They were putting out hand sanitizers everywhere. They were kind of encouraging people, just to stay clean and just be aware of that. And for such a big event, you know, there's usually one or two people that come away sick, and then, well, you know something, I didn't hear of anyone, just because people were aware of it, you know. And I think it's, you know, it's
washing hands.
It's highlighted that.
It's crazy.
It's highlighted that fact, you know, that we're touching people. We should be as clean as possible. You know, that's how people can feel safe and to come back to dance. And we hope it really happens soon. Yeah.
I think it's a little bit easier for us with Warsaw because it's 5-star hotel. So it's not only that we will put hand sanitizers, but 5-star hotel, you know, they're really clean anyway, but they're gonna have like employees working 24/7, like in cleaning the door handles,
yeah,
and elevators. So, you know, they do just help us with that.
When do you think that we'll really start having events?
Where's my magic ball? You know, like
Warsaw.
Yes.
Warsaw Halloween swing, end of October. It's going to happen, you know. So, you know, that will be the next big event to go to. Yeah?
Hey, universe, you heard that, right? Warsaw, we're gonna be.
But you don't think that it will be possible before November?
Maybe. I think September could be. Yeah.
Let's hope. Let's cross our fingers. You know, there's something that, you know, we as kind of event organizers have been talking about for a while, and you know, it's something that could be considered. And you know, there's kind of like now equal amounts of events in Europe and US. Almost. You know, I don't know the strict breakdown, but we know that, you know, we have like an event on nearly every single weekend now, and sometimes 2 events. You know, so it's getting like the same craziness as what's going on in America. So I think the for us, and you know, I'm not going to name names. There's a definite need for a European branch of the WSDC because we're subject to the same rules as WSDC like as it was, but we're not. One of the biggest rules is that, which we struggled with when we first started Baltic, was you must hold your event in a hotel. Now, clearly that doesn't happen in Europe. So some of the rules are not applicable to Europe. So there should be a rethink about how important it is now that Europe has a voice. The beautiful Estelle Bonaire, we love her dearly. I know she's now on the board in WSDC, but I think now is the time and there's enough events to have a branch of WSDC, European Swing Dance Council or whatever, in Europe.
Just someone local, you know, someone here in Europe. Obviously, the people from the board, they don't travel here for many reasons, but they don't know what the European market is. We are different. We are not one country speaking the same language, traveling between states. We are totally different countries, totally different cultures. We have visa problems and even the venues problems. Because yes, we don't have such a huge hotels. If we do, we pay the cost for that, and the events has to pay for that. And also we want to have champions here. We want to have champions division. We want to train people to do it. You know, if you want to organize an event for your community in your small local area, you have to have someone you can turn for help or advice. But in Europe, of course, we are as friends. We talk and we help each other. But if you don't have really anyone who's like, hey, I want to invite, you know, Kyle and Sarah. How to do it? How do you organize? How do you do budget? Just help me out, or maybe help us to promote. Give us like a maybe website for European only. We need something which is more local for us, something what understand the Europe, and voices here of the leaders who can help to grow the community. Because it's still small, it's still young, and we need to make it stronger. And still create something here local and use local people to grow and promote and train others. I think that will be a good way to go, especially that, as you said before, maybe we will suffer with some losses. Maybe people will not be able to travel. Maybe people will not be able to go to events. So how the WSDC can maybe financially help.
So everything kind of works just a little bit differently here. And we really think that it's time to kind of, have someone or a board, a group of people here, like the WSDC in America, that understand Europeans, the European market, and offer a support base for people who are having problems and things like that. Yeah. So it's I think it's a high time that kind of happened, and I hope that maybe people will consider that.
And as you said, we would like someone being here, for example, on one of the events. So hey, this member of the board is gonna be on this weekend. If you need any help, assistance, advice, it's gonna be like a meeting maybe, so people can feel supported.
I've heard a lot about people that are starting up in West Coast Swing, receiving attitude from better dancers or dancers of a certain competitive category, if you will, that unfortunately many times hits the self-confidence and well-being, so to speak, of these people inside of the community. So there are people that stop dancing because of it. Because they were treated wrong by an instructor, or because they received, bad feedback after a dance on a social dance floor without any,
without asking for it.
Without asking, yes, unsolicited, feedback on the dance floor. Yeah. So that's one side of the story that I would definitely love for it to end, so to speak, and that's on the side of whoever treated those people bad, so to speak. But then there's the other flip side to it, which is that I think that a lot of people are not aware of the fact that they might have this type of situations happening. And I'm going to give you an example. So when I started dancing, I started making a lot of friends. And these friends at the time, maybe belonged to a competitive category of X, Y, Z, right? And so as we become better dancers, because, we hang out, we go to the same workshops, same events, blah, blah, and whatever, obviously, that group of people kind of together in a way, even though maybe like with ons and off, become better dancers. So it's not strange that you're still friends with the same people 5 to 10 years after, but then everybody belonging to, in this case, a higher level category, if you will. So when it comes to the problem of the dancers not dancing with other people or not hanging out with other people, when you see it from the outside, you might think, oh, they're like champion level dancers or also level dancers or advanced dancers. They don't want to hang out with us like newcomers or whatever, or, they don't want to dance with us. That's not entirely true. While there are assholes all over the place, don't get me wrong, and I'm fully aware of that these things do occur, there's also that thing of like, when I go to these events, I want to hang out with my friends because, I only get to see them 2 or 3 times a year. And so if you try to blend in, then that you have the room parties going on, you are at the bar hanging out, and you may be only on the dance floor for maybe an hour and a half. And then during that time, obviously, if you see people that you haven't seen in a while and you want to dance with them, then it's a very tricky cycle to get out of. And it kind of becomes that you're always dancing with the people that you're kind of always dancing with. So it becomes these cliques of people all over the place, regardless of the levels, and they're not necessarily nested together, if that makes sense. And I think that's one of the issues that we see in the community right now, that on the dance floor specifically, you see these cliques, and sometimes those cliques even kind of spread out into the hanging out spaces as well, meaning you only hang out with the people of a certain competitive category or whatever it is. So one of the things that I love about events that have the possibility to create these spaces, whether it be room parties or like, when you have mutual areas to eat, or like bars or whatever, that you can actually interact with everybody in the community, regardless of the level that you might be dancing in, just creates a more unified sense of again, community, so to speak. And I think that's definitely something that we can work harder on. From one side, kind of understanding, oh shit, maybe that person didn't mean to be an asshole. Maybe they just kind of, you know, they're hanging out with their friends, and the people that actually are assholes just stop being assholes.
I do think that the West Coast Swing community was starting to have too much emphasis on competitions. And I don't mean that, oh, people shouldn't compete. So I want to be really clear with that. I'm hyper competitive myself, right? You would not get to this level if you weren't competitive. But there's a difference between wanting to compete and competing because you want to progress or because it's a sign of progress to you, versus thinking that, like, equating competition status to social status. And I feel that the West Coast Swing world has kind of moved a little bit in that direction, where social status is starting to mean competition status. Yeah. I don't really like that, because I believe that social dancing should be about dancing with everyone. Now, this also I have to be very careful when I say that, because I don't mean it in a way that says, okay, if you're a beginner, you're entitled to dance with an all-star all night, right? I don't think that that makes sense either. But at the same time, I don't feel we should necessarily be looking at our socials purely from oh, how many all-stars have I danced with kind of thing. Or, oh, I'm at this level, I only want to dance with people my level or higher, or I don't want to dance with lower level dancers. And likewise, lower level dancers should not be hunting higher level dancers all night. Right. If you're a higher level dancer, not dancing with like lower level dancers is both, I think, self-centered and also very short-sighted in terms of your own progress. Because I feel like there are a lot of things that when you dance with somebody that cannot compensate for you, then you know how good you truly are. I've seen some, new dancers or lower level dancers, they spend their whole night hunting all-stars and champions, right? And they're like running to the next all-star, running to the next champion. And I'm like, why are you doing that? You're gonna gain nothing for your own dancing by dancing with people that can just make you feel good, right? And then not only that, when you only seek dances with people who are better, you lose the ability or even the thought process of, okay, how do I make this dance feel good for somebody else, right? And I think a social dancing community is based on those two things. As a social dancer, I must be able to find those dancers that can make me feel good, and I must be able to have those dancers that I make somebody else feel good, right? Because actually making somebody else feel good is something that is really powerful. It's a really powerful skill, and it's a really powerful feeling, right? When I dance with somebody and I know that I finished that dance and the person is like, wow, she feels so good about the dance, right? That feeds my own, that feeds my soul, literally. Right? But if I'm only looking at taking from the social dance community, then I essentially am a leech. And it's very short-lived, because if I just keep looking for better dancers and I'm like, okay, I'm going to find somebody that can make my night, right? But I don't have the skills to actually do that for myself, right? And so what happens if I get rejected by an all-star, if I'm alone, or let's say that night there aren't so many of the good dancers out? Then you feel like, oh man, I had a shitty night. I didn't manage to catch these people. I didn't manage to dance with all these people. My night sucks, right? You can't sustainably stay in social dancing if you have that kind of mindset, right? And I've loved social dancing for 18 years. And I will say this without any measure of like disrespect to any of my other peers who are professionals. But a lot of people that have been doing this full time don't necessarily love social dancing that much anymore, right? For me, social dancing has been the one thing that has kept me in this for 18 years, whether it's salsa, bachata, or West Coast. I love social dancing. And so the reason why I've been able to stay so passionate about social dancing is because I give and take in equal measure. No, so like sometimes I feel like I've seen some people talk a lot about, oh, competitions are bad. And so I kind of disagree with that a little bit, because the competition culture has been around forever. The culture started changing only recently. And so I don't feel the competitions are to blame. It's the equating of a competitive status with a social status that's to blame. And I love the fact that the competition culture allows a social dancer to come in, look at themselves and be like, okay, what do I need to do to get better, right? And let me work on my own progress. Actually, one big issue I have in the street Latin scene, right? And I say that as a salsa and bachata pro as well, is that there's a lot of salsa and bachata social dancers. So many of them think that they are way better than they actually are, because there's no way to gauge your progress. When you have a whole bunch of people that are not good but think that they are good, the environment becomes very toxic. So that's why you mentioned about like people rejecting you for a dance, right? The problem is a lot of these people aren't even good themselves, but they think they are. So when they have a bad dance, they attribute it to their partner being bad, not themselves being bad, right? Whereas at least in West Coast, there's some way to go, okay, shoot, I'm still a novice. Maybe I should work a bit harder. Okay, shoot, I'm still intermediate. Maybe I can work a bit harder. By and large, the majority of West Coast dancers are really nice to dance with compared to a lot of other dancers. So, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that people actually hone their craft because of competitions. But the mindset that, oh, if I'm an all-star or an advanced, I should only dance with people at my level, and I don't have any value, you know, dancing with people who are beneath me, I think that's the mindset that needs to get out the door.
And how can we change that?
That is the $1 million question.
And you don't have the $1 million answer, unfortunately. Not now.
So I think that sometimes people need to realize that so okay, I'm gonna say this is gonna sound really strange, I think, but a lot of people look to our pros for how to behave. And I think the issue right now is that some people are misinterpreting how our pros behave and applying that behavior to themselves. So I've read a lot of stuff and heard a lot of things about how, oh, you know, the pros don't dance with lower level dancers. Actually, that's one thing that I want to say is not true. In fact, I've heard a lot of pros complain that they never get a chance to dance with their other pro friends because all the pros are too busy dancing with their cues. And the community has to realize that to a champion, even an all-star is a lower level dancer, right? And you don't actually often see champions social dancing with other champions on the social dance floor, right? And so people look at it and go, oh, you see, the champions only dance with the upper dancers. So then they feel like, so then that kind of mentality goes downwards. And then so now you have like all-stars and advanced dancers that don't want to dance with the novice or intermediate dancers too. But I just want to bring out like a few examples I've seen like in my like firsthand, right? Let me bring out Jordan, for instance. At a lot of big events, Jordan doesn't really social dance much. But he was at an event in Malaysia, and where he and Tat were basically the only international pros. And I mean, obviously it was a small event. A lot of the girls were dying to dance with Jordan because there was just nobody else. It was a local event with just them teaching. And I remember like Jordan made it a point to come up for about an hour each night. And he just literally danced with every girl that wanted to queue for him. And he was like, yeah, man, I feel so bad if I don't dance with them. They all want to dance with me and I feel so bad. So he literally just tried to dance with everybody once over the weekend, right? And to be honest, that entire event, everybody there is a novice. And actually, I've seen the same thing with a lot of the other pros. When they are out dancing, they actually just dance with whoever asked them. And then when they're not dancing, they'll just say no. Like, I have been rejected by my peers because they are like, oh, you know, look, I've already told a bunch of people I'm not dancing, so I don't want to dance right now. Let's dance later. Right? Those are like my peers. You know, so it's that I do feel that the community needs to realize that it is not true that the pros only dance with higher level dancers, and that mentality needs to keep going downwards, and people need to realize that you do need to dance with all levels to be good.
What you said about they only dance with all-stars or advanced, I think that might be because all-stars and advanced have more confidence to approach them, to ask them. And if a novice person would have this confidence, or a newcomer, that they would dance with him or her.